red badge upon his manly breast. What scab obeys the vile command of Murphy and the rest? He's all a knave and half a slave, who slights his union thus. But true men, like you men, will show the badge with us.
Number 14 Henrietta Street was built by Luke Gardner in the 1750s during what is known as the Georgian era and was a splendid showpiece for an aristocratic family. The street itself was an example for all future housing developments for the wealthy elite in Dublin during the next 100 years. However, by 1913, it represented a different way of life. It had become a rundown tenement home for working-class families. Often over 100 people could live in a house like this. In fact, 17 families lived in number 14 and over 25,000 families lived in tenements. Sanitation was poor, infectious diseases flourished, infant mortality could be as high as 50%. By 1913, 1/4 of adult males in Dublin were unskilled. The oversupply of labour meant that employers could pick and choose who worked for them and keep wages low. The arrival of Jim Larkin in Dublin and the formation of the Irish Transport and General Workers Union, the ITGWU, in 1909 quickly made an impact, posing a threat to the authority of the employers.
We will hold our meetings on the streets, and if one of our men should fall, there must be justice. By the living God, if they want war, they can have it.
Shortly after, Larkin's sister Delia helped establish the Irish Women Workers Union. By uniting under the ITGWU, it enabled unskilled and casual workers to demand better pay and conditions through collective bargaining. Moreover, Larkin and the ITGWU had a broader agenda of a better life for everyone and a bigger say for workers. However, joining a trade union could mean instant sacking by an unsympathetic employer. By the summer of 1913, tensions were running high in Dublin. The employers were united and trying to protect what they regarded as their interests. William Martin Murphy questioned the wisdom of allowing unskilled and semi-skilled workers the right to join unions because he believed they generally lacked the intelligence and education not to be led astray.
I want you to clearly understand that the directors of this company have not the slightest objection to the men forming a legitimate union. And I would think there is a talent enough amongst the men in the service to form a union of their own, without allying themselves to a disreputable organisation and placing themselves under the feet of an unscrupulous man who claims the right to give you the word of command and issue his orders to you and to use you as tools to make him the labour dictator of Dublin.
Larkin planted the idea that by uniting, ordinary workers could achieve their shared aims of better working and living conditions. A series of key events unfolded in Dublin in that summer of 1913. William Martin Murphy determined to confront Larkin and the ITGWU. On the 15th of August, he dismissed 40 men and boys in the dispatch department of his Irish Independent newspaper for their membership of the ITGWU. On the 17th of August, he sacked another 200, this time in his Dublin United Tramway Company. The 26th of August was the opening day of the Royal Dublin Society Horse Show, a highlight of the year for the Dublin Castle establishment. The union struck back as ITGWU members put on their red hand union badges and stopped the trams. On the 30th of August, police baton charged a crowd near the ITGWU headquarters, Liberty Hall, fatally injuring two labourers, John Byrne and James Nolan, who would later die of their wounds in hospital. The following Sunday, the 31st of August, Larkin had himself smuggled into William Martin Murphy's Imperial Hotel on Sackville Street, nowadays O'Connell Street, and he managed to speak briefly from the balcony on the first floor before being arrested.
This is not a strike. It is a lockout of men who have been tyrannically treated by a most unscrupulous scoundrel. Murphy has boasted that he would beat Larkin. He said he would spend £100,000 to break Larkin. A man who's going to lead you out of bondage into the land of promise.
The Dublin Metropolitan Police, the DMP, on duty outside, baton charged the crowd, leaving 400 to 600 seriously injured. It became known as Bloody Sunday. By this time, Murphy had banded the employers together in the Dublin Employers Federation, and they refused to provide work for members of the ITGWU, locking them out of their places of work if they did not sign a pledge. Workers then made a stand by coming out in sympathetic strikes in support of those who were locked out. Any worker who signed the pledge or crossed the picket line was called a scab. On the 3rd of September, the funeral of James Nolan took place. Thousands followed the coffin to Glasnevin Cemetery. A guard of honour was provided by 200 striking tramway workers. The previous evening, the 2nd of September, 2 tenement houses collapsed in Church Street, killing 7 residents and unleashing an uproar against the conditions in the tenements. The British Trade Union Congress, the TUC, pledged support for the Dublin workers. During the lockout, over £93,000 was sent in cash, food and fuel by the labour movement in Britain. Food ships were sent with supplies for the locked out and striking workers and their families, and a food kitchen was opened up in Liberty Hall. However, an attempt to send the children of some locked out and striking workers to England to be looked after there was stopped by opposition led by Catholic clergy. By late September, more than 20,000 workers were locked out, both in the city and its surrounding area. The scabs working for the employers were guarded by the police, who also attacked ITGWU pickets. The union formed the Irish Citizen Army to protect workers. Proposals put forward by neutral agencies, including the British Board of Trade, were rejected by the employers, although unions expressed a willingness to accept them. The situation was to drag on until early 1914. Being out of work for most people meant a descent into pauperism due to the almost immediate loss of income. As a bleak winter drew in and strike relief dried up, those living in tenements such as 14 Henrietta Street were close to starvation. By January 1914, hope was fading for the workers. Larkin told his members to return on the best terms that they could get, and the lockout ended. However, over the following months, many workers, even those who had signed the pledge, returned to the ITGWU. Within a short time, it was again the largest union in the city. Within a few years, it had become a national movement of over 120,000 members, and the first moves were made to tackle the tenement problem. The central issue at stake in 1913, the right to have your union recognised and negotiate on your behalf, the right to collective bargaining, still does not exist in law in Ireland, even though it is a fundamental legal right in 24 of the 27 EU member states.